Good morning. Welcome to Winning the Away Game. I'm Justinus Adriaanse, co-founder of We Think Code. I'm here in a prison in the south of France recording this episode today, a prison that luckily now is a hotel room. So very excited about today's episode. And I'm here with Bok legend Flip van der Merwe, my co-host. Flip, how are you doing today?
Justinus, how's it? Great to be here. We've got two great guests today. A fellow Free State Boersian, AJ Venter, joining us today. Legend of South African rugby. Also an idol of mine, looking up to him during his playing days, but also what he's done for rugby players after his playing days. He's very open about his own struggles and what it takes to turn the tide after rugby. So looking forward to our chat.
And with him, we have Gus that finds himself in one of the prettiest states in the US, Colorado, one of my favorite destinations for skiing. Gus, welcome and very excited to learn from you and just have a great and honest conversation today.
Thank you, everyone.
So we like to always start with the same question, which is, what is your favorite Springbok moment in your life? Gus, do you want to take us away and tell us a story that connects you to the Boks?
Sure. I mean, there's many, right? I think kind of a pivotal moment for me that also interestingly played into my view of the world is the 95 World Cup, the match against Australia. And of course, I would have loved to be at the game, but I wasn't. So I was watching it at home with lots of friends, as one do, with a braai, etc. And the first try, or actually the try from that was scored in a corner, which was so Peter Hendricks, yeah. But I mean, looked at who handled the ball before. It was James Small and Joost van der Westhuizen. They're not with us anymore, but legends of the game, Joel Strunsky, and just scoring that try in the corner. And I think it was kind of, for me, the way I experienced it was South Africa announcing ourselves as, here we are. You guys have ignored us for a little bit, but here we are on the world stage.
Yeah, for me, there's, in my personal space, there's two. One, obviously in 2000, when I got selected to play for the Springboks, when I had my first cap in Wales. That, of course, I'm sure Flip will say the same. That's obviously the biggest moment in one's career. Second to that is in 2004 when we won the Tri Nations and the last game played here in Durban. And being from Durban, that was very cool for me. But I must say, just for now, I mean, I'm not sure what you think, Flip, but what we are noticing right now, what we are living right now, is the most incredible moment in Springbok, in my opinion, history. What we have seen since 2019 or since Rassie started over the last 7-8 years is we will only look back years later how amazing the time is for the Springboks right now. I think we are pretty lucky to actually be witnessing this and watching it with the BA every Saturday or Sunday.
Yeah, definitely agree with you, dude. AJ, I think we are witnessing, and I had the pleasure of speaking with, we did an event in London with Steven Kutzoff on Friday before the match in Paris, actually. I just told people, I think we're busy witnessing an era of Springbok rugby and rugby in general, of so many great teams, the French, the Springboks, the Irish supposed to be good, hopefully not in 2 weeks, but the All Blacks are exceptionally good. And just so many, as you said, 23 players these days, not just 15 or 5-6 players in the team that's exceptionally good, but 23 exceptionally good players everywhere. I think we're busy witnessing a great rugby era to be part of. And much better to sit on the side and watch it these days. I'm hurting when I see those animals run at each other. AJ, take us a little bit through, growing up in the Free State. We both went to school in Bloem, arch enemies on the rugby field, our two schools. I won't tell what we called you guys behind your backs, but where did it start for AJ? When did you know you're going to become a great rugby player?
So, firstly, and I think you know this, but I went to a school called RTS Louis Botha. So, when Flip said arch enemies, it wasn't really. We were the guys that got 70 points every time we play against Grey College every year from standard 6 to matric. So yeah, arch enemies is not. It's just we're the ones getting beaten every time. So it was so lovely when. And this is a nice story maybe to start off. So for my whole high school career, I would get, not whatever lie, guys, between 50 and 70 points every time we played Grey College. And so, of course, as a child, I've got a deep hatred for the Grey College guys because it's not it's not nice to lose that much. And so after school, I went to the army. And of course, in the army, you play with guys 3 years older is perceived to be a guy with a harde baard, So all of a sudden I'm in the army and I'm playing with these fit animals in the army against the grey O's that are now studying at Shimlas. And the year after that, I go play for Old Greys, the club. Now I've got Piet Bester with me, Andre Bester. These guys are 30 years old. So now all of a sudden I am the peacock with these animals next to me. And we are drilling the university guys. So I had a bit of payback at least years later playing against all the guys Flip. But yeah, so I grew up in a beautiful area of the country called the Southern Free State, close to Colesberg, in a town called Petuli. And my first memory of rugby was before school when I was 5 years old. My dad I'll never forget it. I was still just playing around the field, and the next thing my dad said, "Come, go, off you go." And I was crying, no, come. And he just chucked me into the field. Didn't know what I was doing, but that was my first, memory of playing a game. And in those days, you guys, you would know Flip. The fields were full of doringkies, little thorns, and you're playing barefoot. And in a Free State in the winter, it's iced, so it's a hard school to start with. But that basically is where I remember my rugby starting.
It's a good memory, AJ. The only reason Grey scored so many tries against RTS is because we didn't want to fall on that field. It was so hard that we just kept the ball in the air and just kept running. That's the only thing.
Guys, you also come from one of the great rugby schools in South Africa. I believe they ended up #1 this year, Paarl Boys High. So tell us a little bit about your origin and your journey in Paarl Boys.
Yeah, I always have conversations with people, and they joke with me, "How do you know which school I'm from?" Because I tell them. And I think the Grey College guys have sort of the same joke that they deal with all the time. Yes, I grew up in Paarl. I was born and I went to Paarl Boys. My dad was there as well, so sort of second generation. My earliest memory of rugby in boys primary at that point was the red and blue teams. At when you're in grade 1, you were divided into red and blue teams, and you also played barefoot and running around. A memory for me that stands out is I so happened to start my school career with the children of John Gainsford and Tiny Nedling. And so I kind of had these Springbok legends, in and around us for our entire rugby primary school career.
Yeah, those school memories are so fun. I mean, grew up in Pretoria, played on a lot of iced fields as well. Nothing as bad as, I'm sure, as Bloemfontein, but... So AJ, you obviously then started playing and eventually had a great, I think, won the Currie Cup with Transvaal or Gauteng. I don't know what they were called, the Lions in the late 90s, and then made your Springbok debut. And then that was that insane game in Durban, I think in 2002 against the All Blacks. I actually have a funny story about that. I was in Durban with Pride Property, and our offices was in Durban, and was dying. I extended my flight. Instead of flying home on Friday, I extended it to the Sunday, but I didn't have a ticket for the game. So the Saturday morning, still hunting for a ticket, we end up going for a run on the promenade in Durban. And there's this guy standing with a sign saying he's got an extra ticket for the game. And I obviously immediately ran to him and started talking to him. And it turned out it was a French guy that secured 2 tickets for him and his girlfriend to come watch the All Blacks play in Durban. And just before the trip, he broke up with his girlfriend and ended up coming alone. And he had this extra ticket. So made friends with him and watched the game with him. And there was this obviously insane incident of Piet van Zyl running onto the field and tackling the ref. And you were one of the guys who pulled them apart. So yeah, tell us a little bit about that story.
Well, when people ask me, I always say it's actually so sad that there's guys like Flip, when they talk about their career, they talk about a World Cup and a this and a that. And then even if you Google me, the first thing that comes up, the guy that hit the supporter. So it is funny to talk about, although it's stuck with me, unfortunately. So rather than having won the World Cup, the guy that punched the supporter. So I just remember I was playing lock, the right-hand side lock, the tight head lock, and I just remember we were in the scrum, and I remember seeing a guy with blue jeans, and I just immediately knew that there's something wrong. And as the scrum broke up, I don't know why. I just felt like I need to just go there, because I think instinctively I knew there's something wrong. So I ran up, and Richie did the same. I obviously watched the video now afterwards, and Richie did the same. We managed to get him off. I will say, and no disrespect to the referee, I don't see where he's actually hurt himself. Apparently he dislocated the shoulder, but I don't understand what happened there. But maybe he did feel, maybe he got a bit of a fright and just wanted to go off for that day. But I mean, I must say that I did give Pete a few. I don't know if you can say PK on this thing. I did give him a few PKs on the nose. So yeah, it was. I think he learned a good lesson, old Pete. But he was. I do remember Pete was on fire, man. He was full of the Brandewyn and Coke that day.
That's excellent. I was still a school arty back then when that happened, and that was actually, can you imagine? That's all we wanted to see is a couple of PKs being thrown around. So it was actually quite good. AJ, I actually want to jump a little bit backwards. As you did the opposite of a normal rugby player, as you went overseas quite early to get some experience, and then came back to South Africa quite fast. Take us through that experience a little bit, ending up in Italy and then deciding to come back to South Africa with a little bit of a harder beard and a bigger body, I imagine, and then actually making quite a big impact quite early at the Cheetahs.
The pasta didn't do me any favors in Italy. I got back very fat. I weighed probably 120 kilograms. Yeah, so I think I was 21 or 22, and maybe 21. And I was playing. I don't know if you guys remember Nelly Smith. Gus, I think you will remember Nelly Smith, who was the Cheetahs coach, and Nelly was coaching the Rovigo team, the Italian team Rovigo, when Nas Botha was playing. They both made Rovigo famous in South Africa because Nas was playing there. I was struggling to get into the Free State team, so I was playing Free State B, Free State Under 21. And one afternoon, Nelly just said to me, "Would you be interested to go to Italy?" Now, I have never been out of the country. I've been to Cape Town and Joburg, and I'm from Bloemfontein. I'm from the farm, and I wear khaki clothes. So I immediately said yes. It sounded like an awesome trip. They were paying me 9,000 Rand for the month. They gave me a house and a car. I mean, are you kidding me? That's incredible at the time. I mean, it's brilliant. You can't not say yes to that deal. So I immediately agreed, flew to Italy, and the guy, they could take 2 foreigners in at the time. And the other foreigner was a guy called Christian Stewart. Now, I don't know how many of you know stories about Christian Stewart, the smoothest cat in South Africa on the rugby field. And Christian from Cape Town, obviously, he knows what diesel jeans are. He knows what Versace is. I had no idea. Christian tells the story of he walks down the airport, down the road, stepway in the airport in Joburg, and he sees this guy from the other side full khaki clothes with a comb in the sock. Now that's obviously made up. The comb in the sock is made up, but that's the story he tells people. And this guy came across and said, "Hello, my name is Aya." So this is what he tells people basically when the first day he saw me. And Christian and I, we had an incredible time in Italy. I ended up staying for 3 seasons. I ended up marrying an Italian lady. I have to say that I absolutely fell in love with Italy. I love that country. I love the people. I still have friends. I still speak Italian. And it was at that stage where I had to decide, am I going to stay and live in Italy, or am I going back? I was playing with the idea, and the Springbok 7 sides, believe it or not, called me and said, "Look, they're touring South America, and they want me to play for the 7 side." And basically, that's where everything changed. So I went on the 7s tour. That's another story, but I only played 1 game on that tour because of a tummy bug. But anyway, got my 7. I played 3 minutes. I think that was at 3 minutes, and I got my 7th cap. And I came back and I decided to come back to Africa and give it a full go. And that's basically when everything started. And as you said, I came back and I played for the Free State and the Lions and so forth. Yeah, that's the story with Italy. I love Italy. I one day want to live there.
Oh, it's an amazing place. Lots of great ski resorts, which I love. Guys, so you left Paul and decided to study architecture. Tell us a little bit about that journey from architecture to software.
Yeah. Yes, I did. And I worked in a practice in Somerset West as my first, or should we call it, internship. I had a wonderful senior partner that I worked with. I started drawing the lines that I was taught to do, but I didn't really have an appreciation for the impact of architecture. And as luck would have it, I'll give my age away, but in those days, Windows 3.1 came out. We got into the world of 3D modeling and animations and designs. And I kind of took on the mantle of being the technologist in the practice. So the architects designed all these wonderful things, and I built the 3D models on a 286 PC with, I think it was 8 megabytes of RAM or something like that. And again, that company, put me into the world of technology. And I was very fortunate because I was working for people that really mentored me and scaled me into this world of technology. And it laid the foundations for what I am today, which is a technologist, but the business side of technology.
I wonder if I can jump in. This is so interesting, Gus. So tell me if I'm wrong. It sounds to me like you've made a very successful career out of something that you'd not initially studied, right? So this thing, like you said, yeah, and that is such a beautiful because I didn't study at all. So everything also in my business is just through purely being under pressure, having to do something and scraping and managing to this path open. And I think so many kids these days are dead set on, I study to be a lawyer and I've got to be a lawyer. But that is not always how it works. So yours is a beautiful story of having to just because you enjoy this thing and exploring, and all of a sudden this thing opens you.
Yeah, you're spot on. That is exactly what happened. I would wish to take credit for actively making those decisions at those times. I don't think I was that clever, but I think the opportunities that presented itself, right, was to go. And I think the world has just changed dramatically from those days. Not always for the better, but the things that my son is 16, and the things that he sort of experiences with the concept of the gig economy, which is I will do a project for you and then I'll do a project for somebody else. So I'm fascinated when you went to, I don't know whether I'm allowed to ask these questions right now, but I am fascinated with when you went to Italy. Here you are admittedly from Bloemfontein, and you're going to Italy, and you're a bruiser and you could destroy people on the rugby field, but how did you deal with that emotional stuff of having to cope with all of this? Because it's a big move, right? So yeah, it's just I'm curious from that perspective. So yeah,
going to Italy for me wasn't a problem, and the reason is because I was so confident of my playing ability. So I went in the easy, and I don't know if Flip, you can talk about yours, but for me, that what you're talking about now happened with me post rugby. So remember, you start playing rugby when you're 20 or 19, and your peers, your schoolmates, they now start studying for 2 or 3 years, then they go into business. At 21, they are in a role at the bottom level that we just said. So they're starting. Now they're building confidence. They're starting to earn more, and they built this confidence over 10, 12, 13 years. I retired at 35, which is quite late. And at 35, I had to step out from this thing that I'm doing that I know so well and that I'm so confident in, and I know what I can achieve here. And I step out there and I go into business, and I start where you just said, where my peers started when they were 19. And literally that's few rugby players step out of rugby into a seniority level at the same level, for example. So, or that's either you've got a family business. Somehow through rugby, you've managed to build a business, which is very, very little that people can do that. But the most of the players step from there, step down, and now you start building. And that for me, Gus, was very, very difficult. I had to dig deep to firstly find what I want to do. Remember, I didn't study, so I had to now start maneuvering and scratching. So that for me was difficult. It was difficult in the sense of having to find myself after rugby. What is that thing that makes me? What is it that makes me AJ? And just the challenges of business. Being an old man, and you're like an old man really in business, and you start with kids again. So that wasn't easy. That was difficult.
That is so true, and Gus, thank you for opening up that conversation, because that's the reality we have. And I often, when we explain, and we had Justinas, we spent some time this week, and I told him as well, it unfortunately serves as nothing to put that you are a Springbok on your CV. That's the hard part of it. I wouldn't give anything else for it, but it doesn't get you a job anywhere. But it does teach you a lot of resilience. And AJ, I want to quickly go into this because it's something that we have in common, as we played a lot of rugby around World Cups, but never in a World Cup. And you were famously snubbed in 2003. A lot of people would say 99 as well. You were at your prime, and if I'm not mistaken, were you 2003 man of the match or 2002 in a Karaka pile?
No, that's 1999. That's 1999. Yes.
Yeah, I remember, because I remember that one of the ones were like you, the best player South Africa, and then you don't make the World Cup squad, and it's quite a tough thing as a rugby player, to build on that ultimate stage. But what it does, it builds character. How did you use that setbacks, or how do you form those setbacks, to build the guy that's today, the confident guy that's today?
Someone asked me this question in a podcast a few weeks ago, and I would say that the question from this person was, what did you fall back on in your career when it went tough in business? And for me, it's the following. In the 12, 13 years that I played professional rugby, I'm not sure what that percentage is, but I'm going to guess it's around about 50%. 50% of the games are won, and 50% of the games we've lost. And the famous old story of Michael Jordan, not that I'm Michael Jordan, I'm just explaining at that level. He's one of the world's greatest sports legends. But apparently his winning and losing stats are very close to 50-50 or 60-40, something like that as well. So does that make him a loser? No, he's an absolute legend. So those wins and those losses, those are the things that as a player makes you grow and makes you, because all of us, we've lost in business and won in business, and the same in sport. In sport, it's just, I don't know if it's the same, but in sport, it feels like it's more often because it's every Saturday. Every Saturday you win or lose. So after rugby, when things were going tough, that is, I think, where even unknowingly, I was taking from those moments. You lose a final And in 2004 that we lost against the Bulls. Flip, I think you played that game. When Brian scored the last try. Did you play that game, Flip? Yeah. So for us, that was a massive, because we felt that was our game. It was over Scadova's, and then we lost it. And that's when the Bulls started their incredible 10, 12-year drive. So those are big losses, and it takes it from you. And we've all had them. But I think later in life, when the chips were down in business, I could look back and take from there and go, right, so what did we do then? Well, Monday we went back. We did the analyzing. We started from base again. We started building. We changed what wasn't working. And so these things sound like normal things when you're a rugby player, but those are the things that you have to take on. Right, what have we done in those situations? Can we duplicate it here? And so for me, that's basically what I took from rugby. All the things from rugby when you lost, how can you implicate it or duplicate it in business to improve?
That's awesome, AJ. Because it feels like in business, we definitely don't, looking back on my career, I don't think I've always done that. I haven't, after every loss, just gone back into that same routine and built back. And that actually just creates the pathway for the next success, right? That gives you a starting point of how you're going to build back. And then next Saturday, you're going to have another opportunity to win the game. Gus, so you ended up in software and you started building an international career. And then at some point you decide, why don't I move to Colorado?
Yes. Again, I would want to take credit for making decisions along this way, but things happened. We just couldn't get traction, right? But then the startup that I then joined, that eventually took me to the US, and bootstrapping it from here, selling to Europe, selling to Australia, that's one thing. But then around 2015, we had the opportunity to raise some capital from, as people would say, Silicon Valley. So Sand Hill Road in San Francisco, where all the famous investment houses are, etc. Raise some money, but the terms were that certain key individuals in our company need to come to the US, and I was one of them. The founders, of course, because that's the brains behind the business. But as the revenue generator in the startup, I had to go. So at 44, I had to make the decision: do I uproot everybody, my wife, my son? Do we pack up and do we get on a plane and do we go to the US to start over? And we did make the decision to do that. Now, there's a lot behind that. I won't carry on with that, but I just wanted to say that how I got to the US, and one of the reasons why I made the yes decision was my insatiable appetite to be inquisitive, to learn, to do new things. It's a hard way to walk. I mean, most of the gray hairs on my head is because I want to know how things work, and then I have to start again. And it's be at the bottom of the food chain. So I wanted to get through the glass ceiling of comfortable in South Africa, having my network.
I think it's not coincidental that in the agile world you get scrums involved and huddles, and and experimentation is about testing and breaking and rebuilding. I often use the rugby analogy in business because we get instant feedback. As AJ said, you play every Saturday. You start on a Monday, you play Saturday, you instantly know if you had success or not. Whereas in the startup, you build these things and you get projections of 15 years, 20 years from now, we will be at X, and, you raise capital and traction or no traction. And, some people even exit the business but still don't know if they were successful or not, if they failed or not, because it's difficult to judge success. And then in rugby, you do it in front of 80,000 or 3 million or how many people, and they judge you. They say, well, your team won, but Flip, you were a bit lazy yesterday.
Your Sunday report rating.
Yeah, you get a bookrapport. Yeah. Your grandmom calls you and say the bookrapport said you have to pull up your socks, So
Yeah.
there's a lot of business lessons to learn there, and there's some great stuff we can keep on all day.
Flip, I don't know if I don't know if I'm going to ever get the chance. I don't know if this is out of this, but I have been so impressed with what you've done with the running, and I hate running. And about 2 years ago, in my mind, I thought I want to run a 100-kilometer trail run. I actually started training. My knees packed up, had a double operation, and tried again for 3 months and realized to stop. I said, can I ask? Firstly, Flip, well done, pal. I mean, that was unbelievable. And I see you've got a new goal now. But what made you? What was the kick?
First of all, if your knees packed up, I will blame it on your coach. I don't know who was your coach, but and Justina's just joined me. He's the newest guy. He's going to join us next year, August in Vichy as well. I had to start doing it, and I'll quickly wrap it. Start doing it to get out of my own head. That's what I wanted to do. First of all, as men, second of all, as South Africans, we love doing hard things and getting it done. Proving ourselves we can do something incredibly hard. Even as a professional rugby player, I never ran more than 5 kilometers in my life. At my leanest, I'm around 118 kilograms. I'm a big boned Afrikaans Kalahari boy. So I needed to. The challenge was put to me by the wingman coach Stefan Weyers. He put it to me, and I just I'd got taught so much in terms of life again, into take big extravagant goals and break it down into daily, hourly little sessions, into doing it, and it was actually quite easy. Justina's here ran for the first time in his life, ran an hour. When was that? Yesterday, Wednesday. Ran an hour, and it was quite easy. It might have died about 4 times, during an hour. But afterwards, the reward was good. So, thanks, AJ. But so much lessons that we learn, and taking on big things and breaking it into smaller, little doable tasks. Like in anything, I think Gus and Justine, as you guys can say, if you take on a big business, that's the most difficult part, but the most essential part of any business is those little daily, hourly tasks. What do I do to become just a, incremental little bit better?
And I think, AJ, the way Stefan does it is amazing. And what's interesting for me is, like you, I've tried to take on these challenges before, and I failed miserably. And what's amazing, both with training for the Ironman or triathlon and the way Stefan does it, is I only have to run 2 times a week. I only have to swim 2 times a week. I'm on the bike 2 times a week. So it doesn't feel like that monotonous running every day. And then he starts small and just builds up consequently, and he takes a complete scientific approach. So for me, that got me already 2 months in, way further than I've ever been able to do on my own. So having Stefan as a coach has been a game changer completely.
So this is something that you do across all sectors, right? So this is that's what you're saying, Flip. This is in business, this is in sport, this is in weight loss, this is in your health. I love it, man. It's so cool. And rather do the big things than the small, easy ones, isn't it? I'm very impressed. All I'm trying to say, I'm very impressed. Well done. Yeah, very cool.
No, that's great. Thank you very much. But yeah, 100K trail run. Maybe next time. I still need to. I have to go for the full Ironman again. Because we have to be a little bit crazier, and I've got 2 very small kids. So that's the best time to do it, of course. So I quickly want to jump. Sorry, to get away from that. But so you had an extraordinary career. Winning the Currie Cup, I was lucky to play with the Bulls, and we won 3 Super Rugbies, and I've done 1 Currie Cup with the Bulls, 1 Currie Cup with the Cheetahs. Extraordinary that trophy to lift it. I think that's the best feeling, and you've done it with 3 teams, different ones. So. You did it with the Western Province as well.
No, I actually won only the 99 one with the Lions. The other, I've had a few finals, but only the one Currie Cup victory when I was playing for the Lions in 1999.
Another thing we have in common, I played 6 finals with Clermont Ferrand, only won 2, you know. That's bad as well to lose those things. And then retired, you said, at 35, which is a good, decent career. How did that happen? How did you decide what's next? What went through your mind?
Yeah, so retired at 35, 36, which is quite late. And I didn't really know what I was going to do. So I luckily, made a bit of money, saved a bit of money. And I had some time to think. It took 3, 4, 5 months and started talking to people. And my stepbrother is a guy called Martin Venter, very successful businessman from Paarl, who's got Waldeby. And Martin got me an interview with one of the guys at Absa Wealth, which is the high net worth part of the bank. And I am got to tell you, I do not know how I got that job, because I know nothing about banking at the time. I don't know anything about investments. I don't have a degree in it. But I do remember going into the meeting and saying to the guy, look, I was honest. I said, look, I do not know anything about banking. If you give me a year or so, I'll learn as much as I can. But in the meantime, what I can do is I can open doors to high net worth individuals just due to my rugby past. And they said yes. Unbelievably, from playing rugby, I started working for Absa, and that just started this path of business development, but with a bit of a twist, a bit of a niche angle, where I started working with high net worth individuals, businesses, big businesses, to get them onto the bank. I after that also worked for Old Mutual in the same space. So over that next 5 or so years, I took the rugby black book that I have and expanded into business and in high net worth people. And so after 5, 6 years, I realized, okay, there's something here. I didn't even know this thing exists, but I can open doors for companies, and there's a value attached to that thing I can do. And I had 1 or 2 of my own businesses, and basically at this stage, I'm doing it for companies overseas. So there's still a few things in South Africa, but most of my work now is doing exactly that, opening doors to the correct people within businesses as well as private people. And there's a value to that. So, Gus, what you've said now about going out to America, taking that risk. I've done this 2 years ago to the UK, and currently I'm angling towards the USA, and I am in the space now where, and then, like I said, can't talk too much about it, but I'm in the space where I feel like a 21-year-old again. I'm attacking and targeting this brand new thing that is so foreign to me, and it feels like it's so far. But if I look back at what I've done in the UK over the last 2 years, I realized, okay, it's the same thing, whether it's the UK or the US or Lesotho, it doesn't matter. You just replicate what you're doing. So it's so interesting that we speak about that. So yeah, I hope that answers the question. Sorry, I don't even know where I'm going with this.
It's good. Get it out.
Yeah, that starting over and that trying in a new context, whether it's like after your rugby career or a new career in professionally, or moving to a new country, is such a challenge. Because you don't know what you don't know, and you're walking into something where some of your familiar assumptions you've held all your life might not be valid anymore. Tell us about your experience doing that in Colorado, guys. Now you're in a new place, running this business. You've just raised money, you've moved country. What are some of the challenges you faced there?
Wow, where do I start? When you uproot yourself when you're in your mid-40s and move to a different country, was the task of starting from scratch, from the ground. It is an exceptionally humbling experience. It's definitely the hardest thing that I've tackled in my career and personal life thus far. for very many reasons, when we hit the ground in the US, we quickly realized that what we've been selling in South Africa, in Europe, and Australia won't sell in the US for the reasons of a different economy, a very mature internet infrastructure. For example, a lot of the stuff we built was for intermediaries. An intermediary is a big thing in South African financial services, where you talk to a broker, right? Now, the US don't really have that structure because everything is online. It's internet. You do everything online. Now, you can go to these big investment houses and you get a private investor and stuff like that. But generally speaking, you don't talk to an intermediary. You talk to the principal, like Old Mutual, like AJ as mentioned. And so what we built up couldn't be sold because nobody wanted it. So we had to find a new industry that needed what we want, what we give. And secondly, I didn't have a network. In South Africa, when I wanted to sell something and I wanted to get into that company, I can pick up a phone and say, can you please introduce me there? I wish I had AJ in those days. It sounds like he can get you in anywhere. But, maybe I'll still give you a call after this. But, the thing is now you don't have that, right? So how do you approach this now? Because you're nothing. You're from where? South Africa. A lot of people didn't even heard of it or certainly don't care. So you have to now start learning how to go from scratch, from ground level, how to position yourself, how to find value, how to sell. And the one thing I learned very early on is that people there bought from me as opposed to from the company. So, and I use that to my advantage. They work with you, they trust you, so they're going to give you the business. And later on, we had to find a recipe where, the technology comes out and you give it to other salespeople and they go out to sell it. But the initial stuff is all about the individual. It's all about the rapport that you can build with person on the other side, that you can understand their challenges and that you can offer them what they need on a personal level, and then you can scale it from there. And I think for startups, for anybody wanting to go to a different country, etc., if you're successful in your own right where you come from, sometimes you tend to be very self-confident. Maybe you have a bit of an ego, etc., etc. But if you let those things stand in your way of conquering the new world, you're missing an opportunity. My advice is, be quiet, try and have humility, be humble, ask a ton of questions. And you'll be amazed how quickly you learn what this new world wants from you and is willing to give you in return, and build from there. It's hard. It's so hard. I had many days when I woke up in the morning and I go, what have I done? It's just, and then you speak to your founding partner, or, you speak to your wife, and you get a little bit of energy again, and you try again, and you try again, and then you get a bit of success, and then you move forward. Will I do it again? I'll have a few more questions before I do it, but I will do it differently sometimes, but I'll do it again for sure.
That's incredible. It's so much value that you share with us, Gus. So thanks. It's actually good to you say again, South Africans, we are capable of doing it. I think it's in our ancestry. I'm a big fan of Des Latham's The History of South Africa's podcast, where he goes from, before South Africa even started and where it came from, and we are nomads. No matter which of the 11 orientations you're from in South Africa, we are nomads. So wherever, if we move to a path of least resistance or the most resistance, and we go against the grain and we plant and we build. AJ, going through this transition and you often building, and you're quite vocal about how you're building, and there's a lot of appreciation for what you're doing. Where would you say, where was the lowest point in your transition?
So I think so I don't know, you guys we're all in this, well, Flip, you're younger than me, but 2008, the credit crunch came, and it cleaned out a lot of people. I retired in 2009. In 2007, myself and three other partners invested in a piece of land on the north coast. It was a hotel site. So I think all of us will remember pre-2008, you buy a piece of land tomorrow, you sell it for a profit. It was easy. Anyway, I was involved with a few guys that they were experts. I was along for the ride and a bit of money. And 2008 came and the bottom fell out. Now we all know that from 2008 to 2015, 2014, it was hard to do anything with land when in South Africa. So right about 2012, 2013, the banks came for the money. And a lot of the money that I saved over 12, 13 years got drained in one afternoon. And that was kind of when things started being a little bit difficult. At the time, I don't forget about the years, but there was a time where I was between opportunities, between roles, and things were just a little bit difficult. Obviously struggling with my finances, struggling to find that opportunity that satisfies me and that makes me feel value. And that was a tough time. That was probably, I'd say my most difficult time. And I don't want to go into too much of the detail, but I basically there was one particular moment that came over, like I would say, a year of incredible pressure where I had what you can call a nervous breakdown. And it was really, really difficult. I didn't even know what it was at the time. I didn't know what it was. I just had these bloody symptoms and it was a horrible time. Anyway, long story short, with the help of good friends and people that could look at my situation just from the outside. Often when we're in a situation, it is hard and it's tough. It's difficult to often see the reality or see an outcome or see something that can help you come out of it. But someone on the outside looking from a total different angle might just go, listen, it's not that easy to do that. And so at one stage, I realized that I've got to talk to my friends about this because, it's always, you said this before, Flip, we men, we tough, we hard, we don't often talk about stuff that you might perceive to be embarrassed. And so I didn't speak to anyone. When anyone would see me, I would just put on a smiley face. Now everything is fantastic. But in the meantime, I'm poor as dirt. And so just by talking to some of my friends, things just slowly started getting better. Like you've said, doing the small things. Of course, it didn't change immediately. It took a year or two for me to turn this ship around and steer it again and moving forward. So that I would say was my most difficult time.
I've been part of EO now for 15 years, and I would say that what you've just said, actually talking about things that I never spoke about before, the freedom I feel, because in EO we have this idea of a forum, so the small building block of 6 or 7 other people that you share with, and because it's people I don't interact with actually on a normal day-to-day basis, you almost feel more freedom to be vulnerable and to talk openly. But it's not even the advice I get from them. It's just the ability to say out loud the things that's been mulling inside my head for weeks or months or years. That just provides such freedom and actually gives me the ability to be more objective about my own thoughts when I actually say it out loud. So, Gus, what was the lowest point for you in making the transition to the US?
I think you go to a new world, which is what we did. And you have that first phase, which is almost a honeymoon period, right? You still feel like you're on vacation because everything is new. You're learning new things. You're experiencing new things. And then the reality sets in. You don't have your family with you. My wife comes from a big Afrikaans family from the farm in Calvinia, right? So they have a whole sort of network of how they work, and all of a sudden you can't just walk over or drive over or fly over to go and see them, right? They're not there. In South Africa, we had our support systems, but you then realize, oh my goodness, I'm now kind of alone, and I don't have these support systems. Now, for me, being immersed in business, I struck that very quickly because I'm alone. I don't have a network. I have to build that. But for my family, it was quite hard. My son doesn't have his favorite friends. My wife doesn't have a support system. And now you've got to decide, what do you do now? Because life is really hard now. Just go back to basic principles and go, okay, what are we doing now? We have a few options. We can pack up and go home. That's always an option, right? We can feel like this and be miserable and carry on feeling like this for a year, 2, 3, 4. Or we can get help and get people into our circle that's maybe gone through this before, reach out to friends, US friends, and start with just going back to why we did this and what's important for us. And we decided to do the last one. Took us about 6 years to get there after the initial honeymoon period. And, you know, again, the US context, where it takes you a very, very long time to become a citizen, you have to work really hard for it. This is not a negative thing. That is a natural progression. But I just want people to know that they're going to need support to go through this. Don't try and do it yourself. You know, get your systems going, speak to people, and move forward, because it's possible. As Flip said, we can do anything, but you do want to do it in a way that you come out on the other side healthy, that you have success, and that you're enjoying it as well. Enjoyment is a big part of that journey. So yeah,
that's incredible, Gus. Thanks for sharing. I think there's so many people that will relate to that, especially South Africans thinking about, you know, they're in their prime. As a businessman, you know, 45, 50, you're in your prime, you're the best at what you can possibly do in your career. And that's when, you know, a big company will see value in and try and place you somewhere where you can create value. As rugby players, you know, at 28 or 30, you're in your prime, and they'll send you to France or Japan or England. And you have such an easy mandate. You just have to go and do and play your game. Where you know, business, there's a lot more nuances. The skill set's a little bit different. It's valuable insight. Thank you.
Philip, if I may add, if I have a second to do that, and then I think this context matters to people that's thinking about living in other places in the world, etc., etc. The big wall I ran into is that people blame me because all of a sudden I thought South Africa was not good enough for me. And I thought I was better than South Africa. And it's really not about that. I didn't run away from South Africa. I'm just on a personal journey. It's got nothing to do with South Africa. I'm on a personal journey. And my personal journey took me to the US. And again, in this world of where people see what you do and they make assumptions about why you do it and they just blame you, right? It's hard when family members and people close to you turn around and go, "You're crazy. You know, you think you're better than us. Why do you want to go there? You know, it's great here." And never in my mind was there a statement of America is better than South Africa, or South Africa is better than America, or Colorado, or this or whatever. It's different. That's a fact. It's different. But it's not about running away or not facing challenges or anything like that. It's about, I have a personal journey, and I do believe I have a right to follow that personal journey. And so I don't need your support, but I also don't need you to break me down because you don't understand what my personal journey is. And I think, you know, sometimes for rugby players, you talk about the back page of the report, or, you know, all that kind of stuff. And maybe you guys, Adrian and Flip, can talk to me about that. But it's and you're public figures, you know, I'm not. If I make a mistake, nobody knows about it. It doesn't appear on the Sunday newspaper. But it's just that people make assumptions. Maybe you had an off game. Nobody asks, why did you have an off game? They just go, you had an off game, you're bad, you need to pull it, you get a 3 out of 10 or whatever the thing is you said earlier, right? But it's just that what I'm calling for is that understanding. Why did you have an off game? What's happening in you're a human being. You maybe have personal issues, or maybe your dog is mad at you or something. And that doesn't mean you're not good at what you do. You just can't perform at that 120% where you have to be on that specific day. And I think there needs to be understanding and recognition for that, I feel, from a bigger audience. So, yeah.
But I think, Gus, that's a very interesting point you make. And I still feel like, personally, I've had that struggle as well, is that there's two things. It's one, the perception of South Africans abroad about South Africa, that's very murky and challenging. And then the perception of South Africans abroad by people in South Africa. And I think part of the journey Flip and I would like to do is to make tell these personal stories so that we can reframe that discussion, and that we can see people, South Africans that's gone out and been successful in the world, as some of South Africa's greatest export, and as people who can come back and help South Africa because of the success we've had abroad, instead of the old sort of traitor mentality that I think said some of the context. So thank you for sharing, and thank you for being willing to talk about that. So AJ, if we move on to sort of lessons and making the full circle back, where you now, what's it that you're looking to achieve in the next few years, and what may be some of the lessons that you've learned from the journey so far?
Good question. So probably the most important thing that happened to me is I've found the most incredible women in my life. Most incredible women for me. Always when I say this, for me, it's people always think, no, but my wife is better. No, it's cool. Your wife is best for you. For me, I found the best women in the world, and we've got a beautiful little family. Danny's got 2 daughters. I'm stepfather to stepdad to them, and I've got a total different focus on life now. And again, I'm a stepfather, but for me they are like my own children. So my focus and goal has definitely changed to I was single for a very long time. Just AJ, just worry about me, just focus on me. And now I've got a family to look after. And so that has kind of put me in overdrive with what I want to achieve and where I want to achieve. So for the very longest time, I've always had a certain number, financial number, that I want to have when I'm 60, for example. I always thought, if I get that number, then I'll be happy. Now, that number is totally blown out of the water currently because of my family that I want to look after. So in the last few years, I've gone through an interesting, let's call it a reprogramming of my mind, and it actually started with something that I've seen from Elon Musk, and I'm going to blow this up. It's not going to be right, but it's something down the lines of, why don't you try and do your 10-year goal in 1 year, and if you fail, you're still ahead. It's something like that he said, and that's kind of what I took on board, and I've taken that little number, and I've made it 10 times that number. I said, right, that is what I want to achieve, and just because of that, I believe, just because of that, certain other opportunities came across my path, which I acted on, and so, my wife always said, you've got to put the energy out there. You've got to put the energy out in the universe. If you don't talk and say, that's the goal, or that's what I want to make, if you don't say it, if you don't tell it to someone else, if you don't plan it, it's nothing. If it's just in your head, it's nothing. And so I'm actually going through that little process now and I'm 52 years old. I'm not a youngster anymore. Might be able to work till I'm 65 or 70. So I give myself 15 odd years to get that 10-year goal into 1 year, and to get that number that I'm aiming for. And I'm doing that through various things. And like I've said before, there could be an opportunity in the US, just doing business in the US, that might assist my very what is the word? Glamorous goals to achieve. So I do a lot of work in the UK. Again, same thing as I said before, opening doors, getting the right people around the table for deals. And I have to say it is lovely living in South Africa and earning pounds. That definitely does help the cause a little bit. So yes, I'm very excited about my future and the future of my family. And it's like, I've said it before, I feel like I'm 21 again with the lovely opportunities at hand. Don't look 21.
Yeah, carry the scars of a 50-year-old, but the spirit of a 21-year-old. Gus, for you?
Big questions you're asking here at the end of almost the end of the discussion, Ines. I'm at the bottom floor again. So I've transitioned out of the business we successfully transplanted to the USA. Really great company, doing marvelous things. But it's time for me to take on the hard thing again. So I'm at the bottom floor of this building, and it doesn't have an elevator at this point in time. Is my metaphor for it. I've just launched a new company, just me. There's nothing special around it, and the mission of it is just to help founders, technology founders, and early stage companies to figure out how to build a company around their idea. My expertise is in revenue generation. That means so much nowadays with technology, with artificial intelligence. We don't have boundaries anymore. You can do business anywhere in the world if you want to. There's a lot of complexities. I've got so many scars on the back of doing things and trying things, and I believe I can help these early stage companies and founders create a strategy and just be excited about the things that they're doing. I'm carving out a very specific area in the business for South African founders. I personally know how difficult it is to spread your wings out of South Africa as an entrepreneur. We had to go through that, simple things like intellectual property and how you have to work with the Reserve Bank and, all those kind of things cost us personally, the company, but hundreds of thousands of rands to learn those lessons and understand how you do that, how you spread your wings out of South Africa with a regulated environment to the rest of the world, which is definitely more welcoming to the concept of a founder and a startup. I think South Africa still has regulatory things we have to work through with regards to making it easier to build businesses here. So that's what my new venture is all about. I have no idea how to scale it yet. But it's just about the next year for me with regards to trying to add value and pay the bills, and then figure out what this thing could become, and understanding if it's valuable. Is that what founders want? I think that it's valuable, but typical to a startup, you still want to figure out, so I've joined some networks, Justinas, that's how you and I met. Which I'm still grateful for today. In this week I'm in South Africa, I met with two founders and one company that's doing very well, but they want to break through a glass ceiling. I've offered my time to work with them, and I'm very excited about that. So that's what's next for me. I don't have condensed my 10-year plan into one at this point in time. For me, it's about going back to that ground floor level, have to be humble, with humility, learn whether people would actually want what I have, and then try and build a business around that. But here's what I'm certain of, is that people like us on this forum and others, if we can go in the world and show others how you work with people, just show a little bit of respect. Don't be condescending. Don't break people down because you have a Facebook page and your fingers are itchy on a Sunday morning, but rather try and understand where somebody is coming from I read, I don't know if you guys have, but I read this series of books called The Go-Giver. I mean, it's very thin books. There's 4 of them.
Fantastic.
I would always recommend people to read this series. There's a Go-Giver, then there's a Go-Giver leader and salesperson and all that kind of stuff. And when you first read it, it's such a hard concept to even think that you can implement. But I think I wish more people would sort of operate, on that level. And I'm not saying we're all going to sit under a tree and be philanthropists and not earn a cent, because we still have to look after ourselves and grow our own businesses. We are entrepreneurs at heart. We are, we're in economies to build a comfortable lifestyle for ourselves, whatever that means for each of us. But if we can go out as business leaders and just show by example how business could be done in this insane world right now, that is just, it feels to me, is just propelling towards more rudeness and more aggression and all that kind of stuff, then I think by example we can help other people. We can still make our own money. But I think we can work ourselves towards a future that's a little bit different to the one that we have right now for our children and for other people. And maybe I sound a little bit lofty and airy-fairy and iffy, but I know that our difference is on grassroots, the people we talk to. But I still believe we can all carry that out. And you can disagree with somebody. You don't want to buy their stuff. You don't think they're great. You think they played a bad game on Sunday or Saturday, and you can do all those kind of things, but just treat them with respect. Just say, no, I don't agree with you, or I think you didn't have your greatest game, right? What do you think, or whatever? And that's really where I want to go with this little business of mine. Don't get me wrong, I do want to make money, but I think the ethos is the important thing around that. So that's what's next for me. Yes, in based on your question.
So that's amazing. I think you're on the right road, Gus. If you put humans first in the technology era that we're in, you've lived through the .com bubble. Personally, I think we're heading there very fast again. So people needs to be put first. We have a little tradition on the Winning the Away Game podcast where we let our guests ask each other a question. H before beauty. Gus, you can go.
I can go first. Yes, AJ, I do have many questions for you, but we're only allowed to ask one, right? And that is, how did you experience the pressure? So my son, he's got Springbok idols, right? And all our friends have, I'm a Siya Kolisi fan or Ibn Etzebeth or whatever. How did you experience that pressure of younger people and other people sort of idolizing the kind of things you do, right? Because we see that persona. You're on the field, you're destroying people. There's just blood everywhere. And it's like, wow, what a person, all that kind of stuff. And did that create a pressure from you, experiencing that people sort of expect this from you and make you an idol? And if it did, how did you work with it? How did you control it? Because I guess it could pile a lot of pressure on if you're that way inclined. But yeah, I'm just very curious, how did you operate in that world?
If I'm understand you correctly, but I've never really felt pressure from supporters and spectators. I strived for that attention. I wanted to play in front of the thousands of people. You want to play for the Springboks, but it's lovely to play in front of the fans, and it's exciting afterwards if people recognize you, because you're just a child. I mean, I feel it's a natural thing to not to be famous, but to get attention and someone to tell you, yes, but you're a good player. So I really didn't feel any pressure from supporters. Where the pressure comes in is when you don't do well. It's when you are 11th in the Super 12. That is when the pressure comes in, and it takes it back again to those are the times where, you've got to dig deep, you've got to go back, you've got to make sure you get out of this position of 11. Next year, you want to be in the first or second or third position where the fans, you can look them in the face again. So, yeah, so I would say that the real pressure was when the chips were down, but when the chips were up, that's everything is going hunky-dory and life is good, right? So I hope that answers the question. So my question I was actually thinking about this question before, but Justina's answer, or I don't know if Flip or Justina asked it already, and of course it's got to do with my aspirations in doing business overseas and in the US. And my question, and I'm going to ask it again, but it's very similar. My question it was that moment, or the moment before you've got to make the decision on going overseas, what would be the checks to go? Okay, check. If all these checks are done, it means I'll go overseas. And I know it's a difficult question, but or not just go overseas, but work overseas. What are those checks? What are those things that'll go right? It's a green light.
It's a very interesting question. I can only share what my experience. I think going to do business in a different country is a little bit different than going to live in a different country and do business. So my perspective is the latter, going to live in a different country and do business. I did not do checks and balances and a wish list and say that if these ticks are there, it's going green and I can do it. And the reason why I didn't, and it turned out to be right, I didn't know I was right then. It was just an experiment. But the reason why I didn't do the checks and balances is because of what you're experiencing on the other side is never what you thought you're going to experience. And therefore, it's very easy for those check marks to all be erased. And then you go, oh, goodness, I was wrong. So what now? Kind of thing. I think going to a different country, go and live in a different country and try and do business there has to be, at least for me, driven off the principles or the things I want to achieve, or, how I want to be perceived as a person, or how I want to do business, right? So it's things like, am I clear on why I'm doing this? Why am I going there? Because that's a longer term commitment than a checkbox. And you will go like this when you go on this journey. And erasing a checkbox may dishearten you, or you think, I was right? So it's kind of could make you lose your way unless you know where you're going there. And the other thing that I would consider, I don't think I'm going to go and live in another country again. I think I've done my bit. Although I'm with you, I would also love to live in Italy or the south of France or all those kind of things. And maybe I'm good enough to one day go have an extended vacation and things like that. But for me, it's about what difference can I make if I go there? And what's the purpose that I want to fulfill? It could be a monetary purpose, but it could be a combination of things that gives you your purpose. And because this whole thing of moving or doing business in a different country or going to live there, it is a journey. It's not a singular event. And you're going to find different people on your journey. You're going to be knocked down. You're going to walk this way for a while. Maybe you're going to go backwards for a little bit. But ultimately, for me, it's about that rather than enough ticks to say, I'm going to do that. Because this is ultimately a leap of faith. It's not, AI hasn't got a bot for us that we can go, if all these things are true, then you're going to be successful. It's a leap of faith, but you have to have your components in it that you can always go back to and say, I'm good at this. Paraphrasing. I can open doors. I did it in the UK. I can do it in the US. You have to go back to those things that you believe you're good at, because when times are tough, you're going to need those. And they are much more granular than it. I know that's not what you said, but they are more granular than a tick box. They are, sort of things that move around and that you have to reevaluate on a constant basis.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Gus. Okay, so last question for both of you guys. AJ mentioned the golden, or I think Gus, I can't remember, the golden era of Springbok rugby that we are in now. About this time of year, in 2 years' time, in Australia will be the World Cup. Where would you, what's your plans and where are you going to be watching the World Cup? We obviously hope for a final that we can play in. Where would you be watching it from?
Well, I'm definitely going to be on my couch with a beer. That's very important. And if possible, a Carling Black Label. I'm the only guy in my circle of friends that drink Black Label. Oh, I love it. I am not sure exactly where I'm going to be, but I have to tell you that I am very excited about the World Cup. I feel when in the last World Cup, I was a little bit worried when I thought, are we going to be okay in the next World Cup? But I think we are going to be incredible with these 1 or 2, 3 youngsters that are putting up their hands right now. So I'm very excited.
Yeah, I certainly share your excitement with the new school of youngsters coming through and the ethos, the machine of the Springboks. I think it's going to stand us in good stead. I do hope that we don't win by 1 point again, but a bit further, because it's really not good for my heart to have these 3 games in a row with 1 point and all that kind of stuff. But I'll be at home or with friends in the US, and we'll be watching it at some ungodly hour, I think. We won't have beers because I don't know, it's too late or too early or something. But it's never too late or too early for a beer. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I'm also very much looking forward to the World Cup in the USA in 31. I do hope it materializes. I know there's some talk and rumors and maybe not kind of thing, but I can promise you then I will be in the stadiums and I will be supporting the Springboks as best I can. But yeah, it will probably be at home with Rugby Mad friends and watching it on a streaming service. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you very much, guys. I really appreciate it. It was fantastic. I think, Gus, as you said, one of our big supporters in the podcast is the Lekker Network, and I was both introduced to Flip and Gus through the Lekker Network, and it's just amazing what community we can build as South Africans abroad and have conversations like that. So I want to thank both of you for being here today and being vulnerable and willing to talk to us about the ups and the downs of life in rugby and abroad. And it's really a pleasure and an honor to be here. Flip.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think there's valuable lessons between the 4 of us, and to the people that's going to listen. There's a lot of things to take out. We could have gone another 2 hours, I think, with all the things. I've got so much more questions, but it would be great to stay connected. Wherever we go in the world, we stay South Africans. Our roots are deep, and thank you for the value you guys added today.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. It was really great to be here.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Winning the Away Game podcast, where we talk about business, rugby, and life abroad as a South African. Listen to all 12 of the episodes in season 1 on your favorite podcast platform and YouTube. You can follow us on social media. Flip and I'm particularly active on LinkedIn, and we love to have a conversation with you and understand some of the lessons and learnings you may have found living abroad. Flip and I both part of the Lekker Network, which has been instrumental for us to put this together, and we're super excited about connecting with South Africans spread all over the world. So if you're South African and you find yourself in the most remote place on earth, we would love to know who you want us to interview, which Springbok or which business leader would you really like to learn and hear from. We're here to create community and build connection with South Africans no matter where you are.